Stop the car, Darren. The baby's crying is distracting you from driving. In the middle of a family road trip, mother-in-law suddenly raised her voice. At the sound of her yelling, our 6-month-old daughter, Cindy, started to cry even louder. Darren, we can't just stop here. We're on the highway. Although Darren had pulled over onto a wide shoulder, cars were zooming by on the main road. We have no choice. She's just too noisy. His mother glares, visibly irritated. Yet it was Darren and mother-in-law who insisted on going on this trip, despite suggestions to wait until Cindy was a bit older.
It's either we leave Cindy here or both of you get out. Choose.
You can't be serious.
I said choose.
We'll both get out. Realizing any further argument was futile and feeling that the inside of the car was becoming as dangerous as the road outside, they decided to leave. The gleeful expression on mother-in-law's face as we exited the vehicle was something we would never forget. My name is Bernetta, and I'm 32 years old. After high school, I worked for a local company where I met Darren. He was a management consultant who frequently visited the company, and we started dating after being introduced by the CEO. There was something I had to tell him. I lost my parents early and was raised in a facility until I graduated from high school. We were both over 30 and considering marriage. I felt it would be unfair to wait until he proposed to disclose my background, so I took the initiative.
I already know. The CEO told me. But I also heard you're a very sincere person, and that's why I wanted to be with you.
You knew? Warmth filled my heart as I thought about Darren, who accepted me and my past, and the CEO, who had always supported me. A year later, we happily tied the knot. 2 weeks into our married life, Darren suggested moving in with his mother. He said,
I'm worried about my mom living alone.
I knew that my father-in-law had passed away, so I remembered my mother-in-law being gracious when I first met her, so I readily agreed to get married. 6 months into the marriage, things began to change. It happened one evening during dinner with just the three of us.
My work's picking up. I want you to quit your job and focus on the household.
Couldn't I just switch to part-time or reduce my hours? I understood where Darren was coming from, but I was reluctant to leave the company that had helped me since I left the facility.
If we're thinking of having kids in the future, quitting sooner would be better,
Darren said. You should do it now, Bernetta, before things get hectic with a baby. Mother-in-law added. True, we were considering having children soon, and mother-in-law's words had weight given her experience. All right then, so I quit my job. When my boss found out, he was sad but happy for me, almost like I was retiring. I felt grateful realizing I had been valued. Darren took over managing our finances. I felt slightly suffocated staying home all day, but overall I was content with our little family of 3. But then, everything changed when I became pregnant. Darren and mother-in-law, who used to help out around the house, started treating me like a maid. I even found myself waiting in the heat and getting woken up to make late-night snacks. At first I thought Darren must be tired and mother-in-law is not young anymore, justifying their behavior, but it grew old. Can you both at least take care of your own needs?
Who do you think is paying for this lifestyle?
Darren snapped back. Since my son is feeding you, just do the housework without complaining. The icy gaze I had never seen before in Darren's eyes and the unusually aggressive tone in my mother-in-law's voice left me stunned. I couldn't immediately come to terms with what was unfolding before me.
Or would you rather divorce? No need for a woman who won't do housework.
Darren added, Why would you say that? My voice sounded incredibly shaky. You don't actually believe Darren married you for love, do you? Mother-in-law mocked. What? Mother-in-law sneered at my stunned response. We just needed a maid who would look after us. No one would willingly marry a fool like you.
We have been kind to prevent you from running away, but now that you're pregnant, that's not a concern. We'll be making full use of you from now on.
Darren said. I was biting my lip without realizing it. I felt pathetic, realizing neither Darren nor mother-in-law considered me family. It worked out this time, mother-in-law gloated. What do you mean? Darren was married before. His ex-wife went back to her parents because we overworked her.
When I heard from my boss you had no family, I thought it was perfect, no place to run.
Darren added, "This time they had me quit my job, took control of the money, and got me pregnant, making escape impossible." Frustrated, thinking it was all a setup from the start, I glared at Darren.
What's with that look? If you have a problem, why not just divorce?
The divorce papers Darren thrust in front of me already had his signature on them. But I didn't have the confidence to raise our upcoming child on my own, so divorce wasn't an option for me. He knew that and still showed me the papers. I won't divorce you," I managed to say, my voice trembling. Fast forward 3 months, and while working as a maid, I safely gave birth to our daughter Cindy. I thought things might change with a child in the picture, but the same old routine of being treated like a maid awaited me after leaving the hospital. Worse, neither Darren nor my mother-in-law showed any interest in Cindy. 6 months after Cindy was born, I was cooking in the kitchen when I overheard a cheerful conversation from the living room.
Mom, your birthday's coming up, right? I think I can get some days off. How about a 3-day trip?
Oh, how delightful. Let's go. Darren was the classic mommy's boy. I had sensed it since we got married, but after my pregnancy, he stopped hiding it. Despite giving me the bare minimum for living expenses, he showered his mother with spending money. She was living it up, lunches, shopping, you name it. It seemed like he was planning to fund this trip from our household budget too.
Brunetta, handle the booking and packing, will you?
Caught off guard, I was shocked. Me? An overnight trip isn't possible with Cindy yet.
What are you talking about? Who's going to look after us if you're not there?
Yeah, it's my birthday. You should celebrate with me. I wanted to argue against their absurd reasoning, but looking at them shouting, I knew it was futile. I reluctantly agreed to go on the trip. So there I was, on the first day of our vacation, having taken care of all the arrangements. We were headed to the hotel with Darren driving. I looked up the hotel you booked online. It's highly rated. Seems pretty upscale. Good job getting us a reservation.
Even a woman like you can be useful sometimes.
I returned their cheerful smiles ambiguously. Their words irritated me, but it was better than them being in a bad mood. I was hoping the trip would end without further issues, but it wasn't to be so easy. On the highway, Cindy began to cry. Feeling the tension rising in Darren and mother-in-law, I tried to soothe my daughter as quickly as possible. But the unfamiliarity of the trip seemed to make it impossible for her to stop crying.
Shut her up already!
I'm sorry! You wouldn't think I was apologizing for our own daughter, but it's all I could do. Then out of the blue, Darren pulls over onto the shoulder of the highway.
Either leave Cindy here, or both of you get out. Choose.
What? We can't just do that! Even though it's the shoulder, cars are zooming by at terrifying speeds. Just wait a little longer, she'll stop crying. The moment I say this, there's a loud thud. I thought we had been rear-ended, but it was actually Darren slamming the door. We're both getting out. Seeing Darren's face full of rage made me feel just as unsafe inside the car as out. And as soon as we exit the car, Darren speeds off, leaving us stranded on the highway. As the car speeds away, mother-in-law shouts out the window, "You'll be fine if you stay on the side, you won't get hit." My eyes well up with tears of humiliation, but I'm the only one who can protect this child. I had been complying with Darren and mother-in-law, thinking Cindy would be better off, but I realized that was a mistake. I'm going to give it my best, sweetheart. Wiping away my tears, I vowed to escape from those two. 2 days later is the checkout day at the hotel we had booked. Waiting for a call from Darren, my phone rings as expected around 10 in the morning.
Hey, they're saying the stay costs $10,000 without the baby. What's going on? Get over here now.
The price is totally different from what we reserved. I can hear mother-in-law ranting in the background. I can't help but grin because things are going just as I had predicted. The hotel owner is an acquaintance of a former boss. The reduced rate was a courtesy because of Cindy.
What? What are you saying?
When they had asked me to book the hotel, I had called a place where I had a connection, and the hotel owner, thrilled to hear about my daughter, offered us a discounted rate as a celebration. So the normal rate applies if Cindy isn't there. Besides, it seems like you two lived it up at the hotel, didn't you? That's why it's $10,000. Darren and mother-in-law had been sending pictures of lavish meals and rented pools during their stay. clearly to taunt me. Why didn't you mention this crucial detail before? I didn't think you would dump us on the highway.
What's with that tone, huh? You think this is a joke?
I'm just stating the facts.
Listen, don't get cocky just because we're on the phone. Who do you think is taking care of you when you have no money, no job, and no education?
Exactly. You can't escape us, so you better come home now. If you don't, we're going to drag you back here. I used to crumble under their intensity, but this time was different. Well, even if I return home, I won't be there.
What? What are you talking about?
Actually, after being left stranded on the highway, I reached out to my former boss since I had no one else to turn to. My boss quickly came to get me, and upon hearing the situation with Darren and mother-in-law, he was livid. He offered me some living expenses and a place to stay. He even introduced me to a lawyer for the divorce settlement. So when I received Darren's call, I was in the apartment that my boss had set up for me. Also, I've already filed for divorce. We're strangers now, so please stay out of my life.
You? What are you doing on your own?
You were the one who initially talked about divorce, right? And just so you know, this conversation is being recorded. I'll be claiming damages for the insults. I had followed my lawyer's advice and recorded the call.
Wait, you're serious?
Of course, Bernetta, we should talk things over if you're getting a divorce. The proportion of anger in their voices started to wane, replaced by bewilderment and confusion. Then I handed my mobile phone to the man who had been listening to the conversation beside me.
Darren, you've really outdone yourself this time. Is that you, boss? I have always had a soft spot for Bernetta since you work for us. I introduced you because you seem competent, but your character seems to be lacking.
Darren seemed to sense something from my boss's heavy sigh and began to panic.
Wait, hold on. We are terminating your consulting contract with us. Wait a second, boss. You can't make a decision based only on what my wife is saying. I have my side of the story too. Seeing how Bernetta was left on the highway, I'm not interested in hearing your excuses.
Normally, Darren could talk his way out of anything, but it seemed even he knew he couldn't justify leaving us behind on the highway. So he just fell silent.
I've already told the hotel owner to charge you the standard rates. Don't think you can get a discount now. If Bernetta wants to go for a cheaper rate, I can put in a word for her.
I took the phone back from my boss.
Bernetta, please, I promise to change. I'll even help around the house. Just forgive me this one time.
Bernetta, I'm begging you too. While it's true that there were some good memories with you as my family,
actually,
I cut off Darren's hopeful tone and continued. But the bad overwhelmingly outweighs the good, and considering Cindy, I can't live with you. I don't even want to see your faces or hear your voices. All future communications will be through my lawyer. Ignoring their lingering cries on the other end, I hung up.
Bernetta, you did well.
Yes, but it feels so liberating. Seeing the CEO's warm smile, I felt like I had cracked my most genuine smile in a long time. After that, word spread about how Darren left me stranded on the highway after being cut off by CEO Leslie at his workplace, and he ended up on disciplinary leave. Even when he returned to work, the atmosphere was harsh, and he eventually quit. With no savings due to his mother's lavish spending, he had a hard time finding a new job. In the end, they both resorted to living in a terrible environment while working part-time. As for me, thanks to the CEO's intervention, I was able to return to my previous job as a full-time employee. Concerned about Cindy, I spoke to human resources and found out a daycare had been set up in the company. I'm the first one using it for my daughter. I plan to give it my all as a working mom from now on.